Hi guys, welcome back. The biggest hook of this video is how strange yet weirdly perfect this crossover sounds. Django Freeman from Django Unchained and Zorro come from completely different cinematic worlds, time periods and studios, yet both of them are anti-establishment heroes fighting oppression. The shared theme is why the crossover actually starts to make sense once you really think about it. And to make it clear to you guys, this is not some random internet rumour. Sony Pictures is officially developing the film, and multiple major trades have been confirmed in April 2026. So here is everything we know about this dream project till now. Let's go!
This project comes from the 2014 comic series Django Zorro, written by Quentin Tarantino and comics legend Matt Wagner. The comic ran for 7 issues and basically acted like an unofficial sequel to Django Unchained. The story itself is such a setup. It sounds too good to be true. The comic takes place years after the events of Django Unchained, with Django still travelling around as a bounty hunter. During one of his jobs, he meets with an older Don Diego de la Vega, who was the original Zorro himself. Zorro gradually recruits Django as both his bodyguard and partner, and the two of them end up travelling across the American Southwest together, also fighting together and helping oppressed indigenous communities. And that's really what makes the crossover work so well. The comic is not just another fan fiction put together for attention. Tarantino genuinely loved the idea because Django was heavily inspired by classic Western heroes already, and Zorro naturally fits into that world. But what I feel makes the whole story even more interesting is that Hollywood has actually been trying to make a movie like this for years. Back in 2019, Quentin Tarantino reportedly brought in comedian, actor and writer Jerrod Carmichael to help co-write a film adaptation of the comic. And this wasn't just one of those early Hollywood discussions that never go anywhere. They were actually seriously working on the screenplay together. But after that particular announcement, the entire project had basically disappeared. For a long time, there were almost no major updates at all, and many people assumed that the crossover had quietly died behind the scenes. What makes this even more interesting is that Jerrod Carmichael later still spoke very positively about the project, despite the fact that it was stalling out. Speaking to GQ in 2022, Carmichael said, "Quentin's a lunatic who I love, and I'm happy that I got to spend the time." He then talked about watching exploitation films with Tarantino and hearing deleted scenes from his old scripts before adding, "It's actually an incredible script that came in from that Django Zorro that I would love for Sony to figure out." Carmichael even said, "I still think we wrote a $500 million film." And to be honest, that made the whole situation even more frustrating because it was confirmed that there was really a serious version of this movie being developed at one point. And that long silence is why so many people were shocked when the project suddenly came back in 2026. According to reports from Deadline, IGN and Entertainment Weekly, Sony officially revived Django Zorro and attached an Oscar-winning screenwriter, Brian Helgeland, to write a brand new version of the film. And to be frank, this is a pretty major hire. Helgeland may not be the type to write in flashy blockbuster people instantly recognized today, but he has written films like LA Confidential, Mystic River, Man on Fire, and 42, which gives us a pretty decent idea of the tone Sony might be aiming for here. Naturally, the biggest question people immediately started asking after the revival announcement was the casting. Because if Hollywood is really making a Django and Zorro crossover movie, the audience would want to know whether Jamie Foxx and Antonio Banderas are returning. Right now, the honest answer is that nobody has officially signed on to it yet. Both actors are still strongly connected to the project. Jamie Foxx originally played Django Freeman in Django Unchained, and Quentin Tarantino has previously spoken positively about the idea of Foxx returning to the role. The Zorro side is a little more complicated though. In The Mask of Zorro, Anthony Hopkins played Don Diego de la Vega, the original Zorro, while Antonio Banderas played the younger successor, Alejandro Murrieta. Since the original comic focused on Don Diego, fans are still debating which version of Zorro the movie will actually use. What we do know for sure is that Antonio Banderas himself confirmed Quentin Tarantino personally pitched the crossover idea to him years ago. Speaking to USA Today in 2022, Banderas described the script as funny and crazy. He also recalled Tarantino asking him, "What do you think about doing Zorro again?" And Banderas replying, "In your hands? Yeah man, why not?" At the same time though, there is one thing the audience really needs to understand clearly. This is not a Quentin Tarantino directed movie. Tarantino is involved because he co-created the original comic and because Django is still his character, but according to current reports, he is not sitting in the director's chair. And to be honest, that distinction matters because the second people hear Django and Tarantino together, they immediately assume he is directing the film himself. This also lines up with where Tarantino is in his career right now. After cancelling his planned final movie, The Movie Critic, Tarantino has mostly been focusing on theatre and other projects instead of directing films. According to current reports, the movie is not expected to directly adapt the comic page by page. Instead, Brian Helgeland is reportedly writing a new story inspired by the comic's setup and characters. From what we know so far, the film still appears to follow Django crossing paths with Don Diego de la Vega and joining him on a mission connected to freeing oppressed indigenous communities in the American Southwest. And to be fair, the timing of this project probably makes more sense than it would have years ago. Hollywood is highly driven by nostalgia right now, and audiences are much more open to crossovers than ever before. Django Unchained has become a modern Western classic over the last decade, while Zorro has existed for more than a century across movies, television and comics. But why I feel the project stands out is that it is not just another reboot or remake. It is a genuine crossover between two completely different worlds, which is still pretty rare in live-action films. So, as of right now, here is what we actually know. Sony is officially developing Django Zorro, Brian Helgeland is writing the screenplay, and Quentin Tarantino has given the project his blessing. The movie is being inspired by the 2014 comic series, and the working title as of now remains Django Zorro, but at the same time, there are still many more things that we do not know. No director has officially joined the film yet, no cast members have been confirmed, nor has filming started yet, nor is there any release date. So while this crossover is finally real again after years of silence, it's still very early, so a lot could still change.